Hello, and now today we are going to talk about investing in Magic the Gathering cards. Welcome to Great Whale Investing. I am Alex, and if you are a non Magic player, you're going to find this video interesting. So, I already have a other video for how to invest in Magic cards for people who play Magic, so it's going to be using more like Magic terminology. But I figured this video might actually be one of the more important videos on my channel, as it's the one I'll refer people to if they don't really have much of a Magic the Gathering background. Magic the Gathering is the first trading card game. It was made in 1993 by Richard Garfield, and it is a game that puts two wizards together that do a battle of wits against each other and see who conquers. Okay, it's like a tabletop game with physical paper cards. Kind of definitely predates, mobile gaming and gaming on the internet and stuff like that. Video games were out, but they were, still in their infancy even. So it was created back in a time where things like, Dungeons and Dragons were considered like nerdy, geeky, and very like taboo almost. So what do these cards have to do with investing, right? So the thing is that Magic cards are a lot more expensive now than when the game came out. When the game was first demoed, or one of the earliest demos was way back in the day, 1993, at the Javits Center, New York, and they had given out like alpha starter packs. Okay, alpha is the first set of Magic. They gave out these decks that had cards in them, and they gave them out to people to demo the game. And people would look at them. They'd look at the cards. Oh, that's cool. Whatever. Throw them out. Like you throw out like a pamphlet or a brochure. So that was, it was just a humble, small game in the beginning. And people didn't really foresee something in the future that it would have value. Some of the greatest collectibles or the greatest things out there that people collect are not the ones that are marketed as collectibles. The game was marketed as like a trading card game, and the cards are supposed to have value. They were supposed to be different varying values, as there's different varying rarities to the cards. Cards are printed in common, uncommon, and rare. So there are different levels of scarcity to the cards. Now, when you're talking about investing in Magic, you're looking at cards generally that are older. So newer cards can be reprinted, can be made more of. They can make more copies of the cards. They're not going to be worth as much because there's just the ability to make more of them. But what makes Magic unique to other card games is that there's a list of cards in Magic called the Reserve List. And it is a list of 572 separate cards that can't be reprinted. There's a whole bunch of legal jargon and a whole bunch of, talk about, how it would be litigated. But basically, for the purpose of this video, we're going to assume that the reserve list cannot be reprinted. It's a promise that these cards are going to never be reprinted, that the supply that is currently out there is final. And that applied to cards that were printed until the late 90s, and that's about it. So from 1993 to 1999, cards were added to this list, and then no more. So what you have are certain cards where the amount of time that goes by will increase the price of them, because as more people demand them, or less of them are around because they're destroyed, lost, sold, thrown in the garbage, whatever it is. A tornado comes and washes them away, a hurricane, who knows. As time happens, the cards become scarcer and the price goes up. And if you look at some charts and numbers of some of these cards, the numbers are ridiculous, like astronomical gains on some cards. There are cards that were printed when the game came out in 1993 that were worth $50 to $100. And today, in today's market, sold listings of them go for six figures. So you're talking about $100 to six figures. Because the cards have inherent value. They have a playability factor, like you could play with the cards, but in addition to that, they're perceived as valuable. There are more people who want them than people who have them. The original print run for the first set, the rares in the first run, had only about 1,000 copies ever made. It's estimated that about half of them have been destroyed over time, so there's only about 500 left, let's say. And many of them are in homes and with players that will never get rid of them. I only own a few of those, they're called alpha rares myself, and they're not going anywhere. They will be the last cards I ever sell. If I were to sell everything, if I were to have a catastrophic event where I would need to sell cards to make money, they would be the last ones I sell. And many people are in that same boat. That's because they're scarce, because they're rare, they're unique, they're some people call beautiful. And if you look at Magic cards, at least these 572 cards that are on the reserve list, they have never gone down. They may have retraced for a few months, but no matter where they go on the curve, it doesn't go down. The curve never goes like this. It just continues to go up slowly and gradually over time. All of them, all of the cards. Some of them are still worth, $2 or less. Some of them are worth tens of thousands of dollars or more. And they all have followed the trajectory upwards. It's the only direction these cards go. Think of it almost like gold or Bitcoin. Even if Bitcoin has a small retrace, it will continue to go up over time because it is a scarce item. The cards are a little bit different because they're physical and you can play with them, but one of the things to keep in mind is that you can separate the card's value from the card's playability or the card's utility. You don't need to play the game to derive value from the card. You can never play a game of it. You can never learn the rules. You can never be interested in it. And you could purchase the card, put it away, leave it in a closet, in a safety deposit box, in a shoebox, leave it wherever you want. And when you go back in 5 years, 10 years, sometimes 1 year, the card will go up in price, sometimes astronomically. And this is uniform across the board for all reserve list cards. So this is what separates Magic the Gathering from different games. Another game you might be familiar with is Pokemon. Pokemon cards are also very popular. And we remember all that craze in the 90s over Pokemon cards. And those recently in the last year have exploded in value. The original ones, first edition, gradable copies of the original Pokemon cards have ballooned in price. And it's my suspicion that it's not a bubble. It's not some exaggerated phenomenon. It's just a price correction. The cards are worth what people feel they should be worth. The original card, maybe Charizard, if you've heard of it, is the most expensive Pokemon card. It doesn't see play. You don't play with the card. You could if you wanted to, but it wouldn't be useful in gameplay. It's not its value is not derived from how useful the card is in gameplay. The value is derived because of its scarcity. And you might want a first edition Charizard, and somebody else also will, and somebody else, and somebody else. And so many people want that same item, that scarce item, that you see the price go to six figures for them, if they are in good condition, of course. So, and these are completed listings. These are items on eBay you can track on certain auction websites that you can look and see the money changing hands. This isn't like, an illusion. This isn't like, oh, well, I say it's worth this much, but I sell it to my friend and we make it. These cards have actual value that are changing hands, and you can see that. So one of the reasons why I feel that there's a lot of room to grow is that because people don't know about this yet. It's an asset class that is not regulated by anyone. The government doesn't regulate it. The government doesn't tax it. If you have cards and they go up in value, until you sell them, you don't pay any kind of penalties, you don't pay any taxes on them or anything like that. So, if you do a cash transaction, even if you go and you take the card, you sell it to a dealer or a vendor who is willing to buy the card in cash, you won't pay any taxes on it. Ever. At all. So, just something to think about. You park $100 in Magic cards. You wait 10 years. It becomes $2,000. You go to realize that the card's worth $2,000. You go to a dealer. Maybe they give you $1,500 for it. All right, here you go. Or I'm going to make some money off it. I can sell it for $2,000. I run a business. We're going to give you $1,500 for it. You're like, okay, well, I paid $100 for it. It's $1,500 now. Get cash. You don't get taxed on it. You don't report it to anybody. You don't owe anybody anything else. That's it. You just have that store of value that it's relatively liquid too. Like, they're not as liquid as stocks, they're not as liquid as cryptocurrencies, but they are relatively liquid. You just can't usually get the full value of the card if you're going to liquidate quickly, or if you're going to liquidate in an unconventional method, but you can get rid of the cards relatively easily, and most importantly, anonymously and tax-free, like entirely tax-free. So I think one of the main reasons that we don't see a lot of people investing in it that don't play the game, because I can assure you there are a lot of people investing in it who know what they're doing. One of the reasons is because people just don't know about it. It's just unknown. It's an unknown entity. It's not talked about very much. Sometimes you'll hear people talk about sports cards or trading cards. This would be where Magic falls under the category. And they're just non-cash assets. They're not tied to how well the US dollar is doing. They're not tied to the stock market. They're not tied to those things. Many collectibles aren't. Antiques and stamps and coins and Civil War memorabilia. A lot of these things are not really necessarily tied to the US dollar. And there's certainly a level of scarcity to most collectibles. I feel like that's part of the definition of a collectible, is that it has some kind of scarcity. And when it comes to Magic cards, there's varying degrees of scarcity. And I can certainly tell you cards that are on the reserve list are as scarce as they get. And they're not making any more under any circumstances. So, in short, I think that it's something to look into, even as someone who doesn't play Magic, doesn't care about the game, doesn't intend to. Just something to look into. Just do a little bit of research. Look at the charts. Look at the numbers. They're easy to find. Maybe on this channel at some point I'll be posting some charts and numbers to correlate the evidence, but it's overwhelming. I could, take the list of 572 cards, throw a dart, and hit a random card and show you the chart, and it would probably blow you away. So, yeah, that's about it. I'm interested to hear, as people who don't play Magic, what are your questions about this? You can always message me as well, but I would like to know, like, in the comment section, what do you feel is something that you would like to know about Magic? How safe is it to do? Where do I sell the cards? Where do I buy the cards? Where do I do research? What should I do? And I'll be happy to answer that. So thanks for watching.